Hello there everyone, I'm Christina of CSLdesigns and today I'm going to show you how to make this intertwining wirework ring, and this is what mine looks like. So we have this kind of intertwining twisted effect on the front using the base wires of the ring and the ring band going all the way around using a simple wire weave. So you can really choose whatever weave you want to, but I chose a diagonal one, but it's personal preference. And it looks a little something like this on. You get that nice twist there, gives a nice effect on the finger as a main feature. And you can also customize this. You can make this look different, either make it larger or smaller or tighter or more open. It really depends how you want yours to look. So I actually made this ring because originally I came up with an idea for some chain links with the same kind of technique there. You can see they look like that with that intertwining and twist effect to them. And I just turned this into a bracelet. But the chain links, so you could really make whatever you want with these, either use them individually or as chain, whether it's bracelet, necklace, or even, like I said, individually as earrings. But that gave me the idea then to make the ring as well. So a simple ring band, and then you use the base wires to create this kind of intertwined effect. So obviously you can make sets if you want to and make it match. But if you want to learn how to make the ring then keep watching. So these are the wires that we're going to need. They're both regular round copper wire that I'm using. The first one here is a 0.8mm. This is going to be the base wire. And then I have a 0.4mm here, which is going to be the weaving wire around the base wire. So let's get our wire ready and let's get started. So then we need to cut some wire ready, and what I have here is two lengths of the 0.8mm of about 20 centimeters each, and these are going to be the base wires. And then I have a length of the 0.4mm of about 1 meter. So this is going to be the weaving wire that's going to be used to make the ring band. And then we need to start with one of the base wires here. And then I take the weaving wire as well, and I leave a short tail in the weaving wire just to be able to hold on to it. Then we need to wrap this around the base wire, but I'm not going to start right from the end. I'm going to move in a bit, because what we need to do is weave the ring band across the middle of the base wires here. So I'm just holding on to that short tail, and then to attach it, I'm just going to wrap the weaving wire around the base wire once, like that. Then I'm going to get straight into the weave. So I'm going to bring in the other base wire, place that right above the first one, and on top of the weaving wire there. And then the weave we're going to be doing is a diagonal wire weave. This is probably my favourite weave, especially for ring bands. But if you want to, you can always choose a different one. I have a playlist of different wire weaves that I've done. You can always have a look through that. And as long as you're just using these two base wires, you can really weave whatever you want to. But then I'm going to take my weaving wire here, the long end, coming below, and then go over the top of both of them. Like that, and then down behind again. Then we need to come up between the two base wires, push it down, and then just around the top one by itself. Just like that. So that's now one round really. So just to show you again, I'm going around the bottom one by itself, push it down, and then over the top of both of them, down behind, and then up between the two base wires, to then just go around the top one by itself. And that's now another round. So you just keep going like this until you have the length that you need that's going to obviously fit your size. So I now have my length here of the weave, so what's going to be the ring band, and I've also measured it against my ring mandrel here. So one way you can measure it as you go, because obviously ideally you don't want to make too much weave, so you can just get a piece of scrap wire, get it on the size that you want, because what we need is to not have this go all the way around. We need this to kind of come around but then stop on the sides, so something a bit like that. So I would then say that length there, because we need the space in the middle to make the kind of main decoration. And then you could just use that length there, straighten it out, and then measure that against your weave as you're weaving it. So that's an easy way of doing that, so you don't end up making too much or even too little. So I then take my length of my weave here, and then also my ring mandrel, because then what we need to do is shape this. So I'm just going to put it on the ring mandrel and then start shaping it around it. So the two ends there on each side come up towards each other. You can see the ends of the weave are going to more or less be facing each other there. But obviously we have that gap in between, like I said, which is what we need in order to make the piece and the part of the front. So there we go. So now I have the shape in place. Now what you can do is you might want to go down in size a little bit than what you need, because it tends to spring open, and then you can always bring it down to the size that you want it to be finally. So then we have the shape of the ring band. So now that I know the size of my ring band is fine, then what I can do is actually get rid of the excess tails of the weaving wire. So you're just going to do the same on both ends. Then I go to the inside, because we've already wrapped it around a single wire there once at the end. So on the inside, instead of obviously continuing with the weave, I'm just going to go and cut off the excess, but making sure that the little tail that's going to be left is going to basically finish right in between the base wires. Something a bit like that. And then I'm going to get my flush cutters, my chain nose pliers here, and then we need to squeeze this down, and then if you do it, so you can just catch it so the actual end of that weaving wire just gets pushed in between the base wires. That way it's not going to catch or scratch on anything, obviously especially the skin there, since that's on the inside. So just do that with both ends. So then I'm just going to take my ring here so far and put it back on my ring mandrel, and then just bring down the tails of the base wire as well, just crossing over each other, or lying flat next to each other rather, but crossing over so they go towards the opposite side. Because then what we need to do is obviously start making this kind of centerpiece. So again, you can just take this off, and then you can either do this with your hands and fingers, or you can use chain nose pliers. I'm just going to separate out wires a little bit first so I can get my pliers in there. What we need to do is I'm just going to grab one wire at a time, and then right after where the weave ends, I'm going to bend this outwards and away from the piece, and then the same with the other one, but obviously that's just after. Again, just bend it outwards and away from the piece, and then we can always just smooth out the wires here, and then the same with the other side as well. So for now I'm just going to keep it on the ring mandrel here, just to help make sure that I get the size right, because we need to then shape these tails of the base wire to come around in a curve and then over to the opposite side. So also holding on here, it keeps the shape of the actual ring band. So I'm just going to take the inner one first of all, and then just put a curve into it using your finger, warm up the wire and round it nicely, and then you can bring it over a bit like that, and then the other one needs to come on the outside of that, and just bring that over and just have a bit of a gap between them. And then what we need is on this side, the two wires here now, they need to end up meeting back up and lie right next to each other without crossing over or under each other. But then they're coming over basically just around the bend on the opposite side there. So then we need to do the same on the other side obviously, and they then need to come over again the bend on there, so it's going to look like it's intertwining. So now I have both sides crossing over how I want them to. Then it's time to start bringing these wires around so we can also secure it. So what I'm going to do is take out a pair of chain nose pliers, and I'm just going to do one side at a time. We need to get the pliers in between the two layers there, kind of. So I'm only grabbing onto these top two that are crossing over, and then I'm going to make sure to grab onto them in the same way that the wire underneath here is coming. So a bit of an angle. I'm not going to go straight across like this, because then they wouldn't bend around. We need them to kind of shape around this curve underneath. That's why I'm going to follow the shape of that. And I've also already decided this is the size that I want, so it's the right size for my ring. I'm going to grab onto these two wires and nice and securely keep that angle in there, and then we need to start bending these wires back. Now what we're going to have to do is kind of bring them around the tails and actually bring them through the ring band to obviously be able to get underneath. So So it can be a little bit fiddly, but just take your time. And then you can bring them through so they're coming out on the other side here. And then we can pull them kind of all the way through. So then you can see it's going to fit nicely there. And wrap around that curve underneath. So there we go. That's the one side. You want to do exactly the same with the other side. So now that we brought both of them around, you can kind of see that intertwining effect that we get on the front. And then all that's left to do really is finish off the wires here on the inside. So I'm going to do that again the same on both sides. So what we need to do is cut down the excess, because obviously the lengths are too long. So I'm going to cut them off, but again we need to make sure we follow the shape of the curve that it's wrapping over there, or under, depending how you look at it. So what I recommend is rather cut off too little than too much, because what we're going to have to need is have just short little ends left sticking out of about 1 to 2 millimeters. So after, you can see it there as well, where they're wrapping over, because rather have too much left, because you can always cut off a bit more, whereas if you cut off too much straight away, then obviously we can't add any more. So get your cutters in there, and then once you feel like you're in the right place, move a little bit, then cut off the excess. And then you can see there we're going to have these two little tails left, and they're just kind of wrapping around, but they're not fastened yet, they're not secure. So what we're going to need to do is grab the very end of them with your chain nose, because we just want the very end of them, and then we need to rotate the wrist inwards, so when we've grabbed onto them, they end up, the very end of them get a little kink almost, or a little bend inwards towards the rest of the wires. And then just want to make sure everything is sitting correctly. You can see I kind of just grabbed one of them. I need to do the other one as well, and just kind of bend them there in towards the other wires. And I just want to separate them a little bit, because what we want to end up with is the ends of these wires basically hiding between themselves, so the curves there on the edge. So on the front you can see we've gotten rid of them, but we still just need to fasten it. So just any way that you can kind of grab hold of it properly. Can be a little bit fiddly. We need to then squeeze them down because they're still quite open. So just, you've done that flick, which means that when we then squeeze these down, that flick on the end of the wire is going to then make it wrap around and kind of meet with itself there and make it more secure. And that's how we secure them in place. You can always just do one at a time as well. So just squeeze them until they don't really move anymore. So something like that. That one's pretty tight now. I need to do the other one. Tighten that down as well. And then this is also where I said rather cut them so you have too much wire left, because if these are too long, you can always go in and cut off just a little bit more of the end if you need to, whereas obviously you can't add in. So basically this one is secure now. You can see that one doesn't move, the other one does, but this one doesn't really move. So all you really need to do is the exact same thing on the other one. Just go in and cut off the excess. Make sure to do that little flick right on the end and then squeeze them tight. And then once you've done that and you feel it's secure enough, obviously it doesn't move around, then your ring will be done. So I then completed the ring here, so both sides are fastened and it's no longer wobbly or anything, it's nice and fastened together and strong. So this is what it looks like. So I have my wire weave going all the way around the ring band, the diagonal one that I chose to use, but obviously like I said you can use whichever you want to. And then right here at the front we're using the base wires to intertwine and get this nice kind of twisted effect. And it looks like that on. Obviously you can kind of completely customize this. You can make it however large or small you want this section to be. If you want it kind of wider or narrower and make it tighter or more open, that's completely up to you. And it could be kind of interesting as well to add beads or something, give it a bit of a different look. But then that's what it looks like. So I really hope you enjoyed this tutorial for this pretty simple and easy ring. I have loads of other tutorials on my channel, so you're welcome to check them out. I have loads of ring tutorials as well, so please feel free to look at that. I've got playlists. But I hope you enjoyed this one, and thank you very much for watching.